Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Three Men Talking Fantasy Football, coming to you in the off season, talking some wide receivers and some NFL news today.
Two
Hi,
men though. Two men.
that's true. Two men, not three men, as we continue our off season situation. I am Mr. Budakusas. I'm here with Mr. Tom Lang. How you doing, Mr. Lang?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I'm maybe able to pick up my movies real quick instead of, standing at Blockbuster still when it's been closed for the past 15 years.
Yeah, that's true. And for anybody who doesn't know, Tommy and I were kind of talking slightly off the air and alluding to a little bit of NFL news. Mr. Lang, why don't you elaborate about everybody's favorite quarterback?
Oh yeah, I mean everybody knows that our favorite quarterback is going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sorry, the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's been playing catch with DK Metcalf this offseason, and it doesn't sound like he's going anywhere else because clearly the Minnesota Vikings have made up their decision that they don't want to follow the Brett Favre train and have a Aaron Rodgers round two in 2025 instead of back then whatever it was. But yeah, so it sounds like it's very clear if Aaron Rodgers comes off sabbatical and decides he wants to play again, he will be playing in Pittsburgh next year. Um, you know, just let the world know that that's where you're going, so we can make sure ADPs are accurate and we can start doing our mock drafts.
You know, I don't. That news was like the funniest thing to me. I don't know why Minnesota would go that route. They purposely let Sam Darnold walk so that they could roll with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
They're bringing in a different aged guy. It doesn't. That wouldn't make any sense. I don't even know how that would be a thing.
Hey, maybe Kirk Cousins finds his way back to Minnesota. Who knows?
That's true. And Captain Kirk better be careful, or he's going to end up as just a backup for the rest of his career. He better like whatever game he's playing with the
Careful.
Falcons,
I
like
mean, he could be a backup, the highest paid backup of all time. So,
definitely.
I mean, if he wants to play, but honestly, if you want to preserve your legs and preserve your body, I mean, the best way to do that is by making another $120,000. What was it? It was $100,000 guaranteed or something like that. So he's already like locked in. He's locked and loaded. He's ready to retire if he needed to. He has the greatest agent of all time, making him breaking news deals everywhere he goes.
So we should make a point of this. So we are recording this today, which is Wednesday, April 2nd. So some other news might pop up at some point after, whenever you're watching this.
Yep.
So on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, I would like Mr. Lang to make two predictions for me. I would like you to tell me where Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins will be playing football in 2025.
Aaron Rodgers is going to Pittsburgh. I mean, it's clear. It
Okay.
hasn't been jotted down, but he's going there.
I think it's more likely he doesn't play.
Really?
Yes.
So
I think
he's just playing catch with DK Metcalf for no reason. Just
the yeah, I mean, we've seen nonsense like that go on. I mean, I don't see that happening.
mm.
I think it's more likely because they're not going to win. He wants to go somewhere that he could win, and they're not going to win. They're not going to win there.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, they've always been a couple steps away from. They always make the playoffs. I mean, they always have a winning record. They just need that quarterback. Ever since they lost Big Ben and whatnot, they really haven't done much since. Well, actually, let's just say they haven't done much since Big Ben's second to last year before retirement.
Whatever.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's just. I don't know. But
What about Captain Kirk?
this is going to be an interesting take. All right. So I think because there's a lot of news, a lot of chatter right now that unfortunately the Giants, but then also the Cleveland Browns are projected to not take a quarterback at that position. So there is a possibility to maybe have some other teams trade up. Um, there could be some prospective trades in the mix. So yeah, there is a possibility that I could see maybe the Cleveland Browns trading making some, you know, throwing some stuff around and maybe, getting Captain Kirk to their roster.
That's possible. I heard some rumblings of that.
It's kind of I haven't really heard anything out there, but I'm just thinking that could be a good perspective spot for him. I mean, the other perspective spot for Captain Kirk could be also, uh, I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I mean, like I said, like I just joked before. I mean, going back to Minnesota, but they're really
uh,
they're rolling their dice right now with JJ. So
if I had to if I really had to put money on it, I would say that he ends up in Cleveland, even if the Browns draft somebody.
yeah,
I bet you that's where he ends up. Um, yeah, which both Kirk and Rodgers, it's basically the fact that the end of their careers have basically become so entwined. They both had the exact same injury. They're both, at the tail end of their career now after whatever. I
yeah.
mean,
But you know what? I will say though, they had the same injury, but I think Rodgers obviously came back a little bit more fluid than
definitely.
especially towards the tail end of the season.
Oh, Kirk could
But
not move.
I
He
know,
couldn't
and
move, man.
I think he came back too quick. I think he was forced to come back because of all the money he was making and all that stuff too. So, again, no contract can be worse than the Deshaun Watson contract, but
That's true.
you know, the for the Atlanta Falcons, that was a bad contract. I want to actually bring this one up because we've been getting a lot of heat on our TikTok for this one comment that you made last week about Joe Burrow giving up 20% of his contract to T. Higgins. We had one follower basically saying, "Give T. Higgins 20% of the contract that you earned." That's got to be the most brain dead quote I've ever heard. Um,
You earned.
Enlighten me and just give a little feedback. After hearing that from Mr. Michelangelo 1200, what would you say in return to Mr. Michelangelo?
Well, I mean, it's well, I have nothing mean to say. I mean,
No,
we're
no,
we're
nothing
just
mean to say, but
no,
a
it's
rebuttal.
just sharing opinions, and
Yeah,
I'm sort of making that point. I was sort of saying that as a way to make the point about the concept of earning your money in the context of a salary cap. It is not the way you think about it, like you're thinking about it the wrong way. And again, I don't make the rules. It's literally there is a set amount of money for a salary cap for
yeah.
people to make. It is a pie. This isn't, this it's not a political discussion. It's just this is the pie. So when one person has a larger bit of the pie, there is less pie to go around for everybody else. It's just the way that it works. And so whether it's, Joe Burrow giving him 20%, well, like whatever, like the point is that I don't have any sympathy for Joe Burrow going on social media and TV campaigning to like, oh, everybody, just the guys that he cares about, nobody else. No, just them. We're going to make sure we get everybody paid. And it's the team's responsibility to get them paid. Meanwhile, his gigantic slice of the pie is cutting into so much of that salary already. Like the money he earned. Yeah, I mean, by that logic, in terms of free market
No,
capitalism in a
I
thing, like,
I I 100% agree with you. Everybody, again, we're going to continue to get heat on this. It is what it is. Or, but I do see the side of obviously we were talking about Tom Brady last week as well too. He made great moves in his career by taking away the money that he was going to make out front from the team and reinvested that to the team. So, to make your team better is obviously the most dynamic element, especially defensively on a team that you can obviously control and manipulate the ball. So like, for the perspective of this perspective with Joe Burrow, and we're not going to talk about it all day. I just wanted to bring it up. It was a nice little comment, so
oh,
it's
that's it.
a little tidbit conversation
And
about.
and also just
Um,
like I just need to just to hammer that point home because I don't, I'm happy to have a whatever discussion about anything about this, but for the record, as somebody, I did not play in the NFL, but as somebody who played my entire life, and I I was a I've been around the block and et cetera with this stuff. Um, to look at a fellow player of yours and know in your mind that part of the reason that they're not getting paid as much is because you're getting paid so much. And for that not to click in your mind as that's part of the problem, then that's where my sympathy for Joe Burrow just completely dissipates. And by the way, in terms of earning and not earning, there has to be some level of like knowledge about just perspective about what it is. There is a difference between $55 million a year, or whatever he was making, and okay, $40 million. Like, I'm not saying that there's a limit or it's like whatever it is, and people do earn their money, and better players presumably should get more than other players. But again, you brought up the Tom Brady thing. If you want to win, if you really want to win, if all this is about winning, which is what he said, Joe Burrow, if all this is about winning, then we know what should happen. Then you take as little as possible within the confines of a quarterback salary and then disseminate that amongst the rest of the players. The problem is like, it's not there's nothing brain dead about it. I don't make the rules. It is a set amount of money. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So again, we don't have to. I'm
No,
happy to continue to talk about it. I just, I just like to have an intelligent guy. There's nothing brain dead about it. It's just what it is, man.
no, and I get it. I mean,
And we'll be
I'm
talking about
100.
T. We'll be talking about T Higgins today. So I
Oh,
mean,
we will be. Well, before we move into that, because there's really not a lot of information that kind of dropped this week. But
there is one bit of news I want to get your
I
opinion on.
will say this before you get to your one bit of news, because it's irrelevant news, but it's fun to talk about.
It's your
Um,
favorite kind.
our journeyman, a massive journeyman, wide receiver in the NFL, Mr. Josh Reynolds has been is heading to New York, the New York Jets. He's got the connection with the Detroit
All right,
Lion.
all right. I mean, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All
All
right,
right,
I do, I
continue.
do, I do have a bit of news that I want. Like this is another one we could have a nice little argument about. So, so the tush push.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. So, there's a lot of angles to this, but let me at least start with I would like to get your opinion on this. Is that
Oh, there's a lot of angles to the tush push.
right? Before I get your opinion on whether or not the NFL should ban it, my question to you is, do you think that whoever it is bringing it to the NFL, like that they're bringing it to them to discuss whether or not it should be banned? Do you think that's the way that they should be going about it? If they have a problem with it, that's what they should be doing instead of some other method, like using it themselves in a ridiculous manner or whatever.
I mean, honestly, I honestly think that maybe instead of banning something like that, because it's in the record books and it's associated to the game, there has not been anything. They haven't been doing. They technically haven't been doing anything wrong. They're working within the regulations of the rule book. Um, there is ways to defend it. It's just you're not taking the time to try and calculate how to defend it,
Well,
right?
careful. I don't want to get you just on record yet saying whether or not it should be. I'm asking you now, like the people who did want it banned, was this the way that they should have gone about it? Where
Well,
they're
it's the only way to go about it is to bring it to the NFLPA and try to counter it. So that
you don't think I bring this up to mention this. There was a couple remember when Sean Payton was on his pedestal a couple years ago after that pass interference call that cost them the Super Bowl appearance, right?
yeah.
And so Sean Payton caused such a brouhaha that they a brouhaha that they in the next year we could challenge flags. But a lot of the coaches thought this was the most ridiculous thing, and it was a ridiculous thing that you could just challenge a flag like that. So a few coaches, I believe Andy Reid was the most crazy amongst them. To prove how bad it was, he didn't go to the NFL. He just like obnoxiously would challenge things when it wasn't necessarily you know what I mean, to make the
Yeah.
point of what it was. And there was a couple coaches who did it like that. So my point to you was like if I think it's ridiculous and I know that it's gonna, X, Y, and Z reasons as to why don't you just do it yourself and just march it down the field 4 yards of play? It'll get banned the next week. If you really did think it was that way.
Well, it's because maybe they can't perform it the same way that they're doing it,
And
So
I think that's what it is. It
I
is
think
a it's the Bills and the
there's a
and the Eagles.
strategy. I mean, let's just put it this way: the Eagles are probably the most hated team, no matter what, as is outside of the Patriots back in the day, right? So like everybody, unless you're unless you're an Eagles fan, you hate the Eagles.
Right.
And I apologize for all our Eagles listeners, but it's true. It's just nobody likes the Eagles. And I'm not saying that as a Giants fan. Like you could just ask anybody that. But the fact is, like, the fact that the Eagles are able to do this, it just makes people hate the fact that they're able to do it so consistently. Um,
Well, the Bills are the
so
second biggest
but I
culprit
will
too.
say this, but again, I will say this. The Eagles though, there's a science behind it. And it's not like they just like overnight they were like tush push or whatever it is. Like it's been a strategy. They've been developing it over time and then it just works. Like so if I was a defensive creative mind, I would put a science behind to stop it. And I understand they try to do that, but you need to master it and you have to be able to like it's just like how they've been able to master that. It's really rugby. That's what it is. It's a rugby scrum, right?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
have to bring in a rugby minded defensive person to stop it.
Right. But there's okay. All right. So, and also as somebody who played rugby, I can tell you there's issues with that too. So, all right. So now let's weigh in on whether or not it should or shouldn't be. Whether or not it will be, I know you and I have no idea. Like
No,
it's basically
nobody does.
50-50. Okay. Whether it should be, I'm going to land on it should be banned, but not for the reasons that you might think. I don't really care if it's, oh, it's unfair. Get over yourself. Like if Jalen Hurts or if Josh Allen are running it better than you, if the Bills and Eagles are running it better than you, figure that out. My point about why it should be banned is a consistency thing. So, for example, you cannot push off on any, like if you're trying to block a field goal, I can't push off my friend and go jump up to go block the
Correct.
field goal. I can't do that because you're using that as leverage. The same way, so by that exact same logic, and by the way, I don't care that their logic for that is player safety. It's just whatever the rule is, you can't do that. So if you cannot do that, then you also cannot do things in which you are launching other players, and that needs to
Well,
apply
I will say
offensively and
though, I mean,
defensively.
how many times have you seen a running back run behind an offensive lineman and direct the lineman to go, like project sometimes the lineman to
Right,
go in that direction?
right,
It's
and
not illegal.
no, that's not illegal. But my point is that you can't, like, if they're going to make a rule about it, then that would also need to be illegal. You can't just say, oh,
Well,
the
yeah, you
quarterback
can't
within
take. I
one
mean,
yard
because
of the line of scrimmage. That's
no,
so
I get it. I
specific.
get it. I mean, they take away from the defense all the time, so it's like almost
Right.
impossible to play defense.
And
And,
the
and
reason you brought up such an important point was you said, okay, theoretically, if you brought in a rugby minded, like let's say you allowed it and you brought in a rugby minded guy to do it in, the way that you defend that is currently illegal. You would have to stack the line, wedge up guys to push against each other, and then you'd have to have line jumpers launching over each other to get there. Because normally in a rugby scrum, you'd be
so
starting from a locked position when
so
you're not
what? So it's basically what they were trying to do in the NFC Championship game with the
at the very
Washington
end.
Redskins jumping over the pile.
Right. Yeah, the Washington Commanders, but
Yeah,
yes, they were jumping over the pile. And we had such a laugh when they were doing it because we were
they were going to
like
award him a touchdown.
right, even from a football perspective, it's just
Yeah.
like, well, if they're at the one, they can only lose 3 inches. They might as well go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's my point about why it should be banned. Otherwise, they better start allowing some defensive stuff. But having no reason whatsoever about, sorry, if you otherwise can't run it as well as Philadelphia or the Bills, figure it out, man. Like learn how to do it better.
Well, the
Otherwise,
problem is then the rest of the league is going to be just basically utilizing it once they are able to master it. So it's just
right.
football becomes rugby is what it will be.
which God bless it, it'll be interesting. I mean, the main point that I hear on TV, which is one of the only points I hear on TV that I halfway agree with, is, if the Eagles wanted to, theoretically, they could just take Jalen Hurts and do a tush push all the way down the field.
Correct. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing illegal with it.
But to your point, if they did that, if they imagine if they actually happened,
Well,
they
they
would
might as
ban it.
well
They
just
would ban it the next
well,
day.
here's the case then. Then they might as well just dress up in number 11 and number number whatever on on basically offensive lineman just coming in and just basically pushing.
I the reason why the reason why I'm laughing about it, and we don't have to spend the whole time on it, was I forget which coach it was. It might have been Matt LaFleur from Green Bay. Like, if you're going to make a rule not to do this, then the thing that you mentioned, Tommy, that, well, now running backs can't push their back pass because the rule that like Matt LaFleur came up with, or the Packers, was like, okay, it was like a math equation. It was like, okay, here's what's disallowed. You have to be within a line of within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage, only when he grabs it, a second after you grab it, only when, like, it basically just make a ban to be like, Jalen Hurts can't run it at that point. Like, it's just
Yeah,
like, it, so anyway, we'll see what happens. I don't think it'll happen this year. If something does happen, it'll happen for next year, which will be
we'll
right in
see.
time for when the Eagles have to pay everybody, and they won't be as good. All right. Any other fun news, or we can jump into some wide receivers? Any other comments
No,
that I have to address?
no comments you have to address.
All right. Cool. All right, so we are continuing talking about some early ADP pre-NFL draft wide receivers. Some interesting names here. Last week we covered the top 12, which I guess we're both of the opinion is likely not to change much. Maybe some reordering amongst themselves, but just real quick of what it was Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Amon Ra, Nico, Brian Thomas, Drake London, AJ Brown, Lad McConkey, and Tyreek Hill. And today we're going to be starting with coming in at number 13 is actually Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's actually going higher than I thought he would be going.
Yeah,
JSN.
this is a bad draft pick if you're going to take him here.
So let's give him. Let's start with the positives. I mean, he had a really unbelievable year last year. Top ten wide receiver. Now, even though I know Tommy does not like DK Metcalf very much, DK Metcalf is a very good wide receiver. You can't take that away from
No,
him.
it's not that I don't like DK Met. I didn't like him last year, is
Okay.
what it is.
Okay.
And I think and obviously with the trade and him moving on, I think that, there's a possibility that he'll revive his career, But again, he gotta be healthy and he's gotta stop, It's not like he was reading books on the sideline. That guy that was reading books was actually being productive when he was on the field. This guy was spending
Don't
time in the
start
blue
with me.
tent.
Don't start with me. Anyway, the point I'm making is that so JSN to some degree excelled where it was basically a failure of the other wide receivers. Now, it may be the absence or the injury or whatever you want to call it of DK Metcalf really contributed to that. I mean, it's hard to remember, but Seattle did win 10 games. It feels like they didn't. It feels like they were worse. Um, I we're waiting to see kind of what we think of Darnold as quarterback for the
Seattle's going to be
Seahawks next
worse
year.
this year.
I do. I agree with you. I think they're going to be worse. I think Darnold, to some degree, is going to be nowhere near as good as he was last year under the tutelage of O'Connell. Maybe he's having a bit of a career renaissance, but he's still not going to be as good. That having been said, so, Lockett was on his last steps last year anyway, so he really wasn't much competition. And also, like we said, the kind of absence. But if we have a worse, let's say, quarterback situation, which I know talking about Geno, I know how Tommy feels about Geno is an interesting conversation. I just think that basically cusp of wide receiver one, I do think that's a bit high for him. So I guess we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, there's a number of guys that actually take over JSN
Right.
that are below him, and we'll obviously talk more about him. And
Yeah.
as we all know, last week I had one of my guys that's actually in the top 12, but he's not projected as a top 12, that I would obviously take ahead of JSN as well too.
At least right now, I know who you're mentioning. We'll get to him, but let's jump to the number 14
Yeah,
because we had, the source of a lot of controversy. So coming in at number 14 is T
Mr.
Higgins.
20%.
Mr. Mr. Three people have 35% of their entire cap. So, I mean, like I said, honestly, I could say anything about the situation. Let's just leave it there. Three people have 35% of the cap. I don't know who could possibly defend that. Moving on. T. Higgins here. I know that you think T. Higgins has a strong chance to finish in the top 12.
Yeah.
Um,
I strong. He'll. I think he's going to finish a little outside the top 12. I mean, he's going to finish where he's kind of projected.
can I make a compromise with you on T. Higgins?
Sure.
I will bet you I think T. Higgins finishes in top 12 points per game, but I do not think he plays enough games to get him into the top 12 final rankings.
I could agree with that. I mean, obviously he never plays a full season. He, I mean, but when he does play, he's there's a possibility he could score three touchdowns. He's gonna hoard from Jamar Chase in the touchdown element. He's not going to get the same amount of targets, but he's going to get valuable targets that are going to draw attention away. Because Chase is going to draw attention away from him. So he's not the same caliber in player, but when he's one-on-one coverage and he's a big body guy, he has the opportunity to make really good plays. I mean, you could say you poo-poo on him a lot, but I mean, I'll tell you something right now. He's a great athlete, and
I don't
I
put
mean,
poo on
I
that.
hope, and this is my big thing, right? Um, I hope, I really hope, the amount of money that the Cincinnati Bengals has invested in these three players, that they just don't fade, because everybody knows when a player gets paid, there's times where they fade out. Um, what I'm really anticipating is them having to put up 40 plus points a game, and that's going to be a huge benefit to the passing game. They're going to have to if they want to win some games because they got no defense. Um, and but like I said a couple times, over the past couple weeks, the more time that you're on the field, the more opportunity for you to get hurt, which again,
Right.
Doesn't play a full season. Anticipate this player pretty much to play 12 to 14 games next year. And you're just gonna he's gonna have wide receiver 1 weeks, but he's not gonna play every single week for you. So, you got to plan accordingly when you draft a player like a T. Higgins.
I mean, and we don't, and I mean, I won't. I agree with every word you're saying. I mean, the only thing you might say, we don't even know if he'll play that many games. I mean, and to your point about my hatred's not the right word. My hesitation or my issues with T. Higgins over the years is because I know how talented he is, and I know
Yeah.
what kind of a performer he is. The problem is that he's hurt half of the time, and a lot of times, if people remember, like it'll look like he's trending up during the week and it'll be great. And then last second, nope, he's not going to play. Or if he does get injured, it's,
Well,
you know,
I
first
will
thing in the
say
game. And
a lot of the times where he was trending up and all that stuff, and then he just didn't play was because of a quad issue the last 2 years. So, I
whatever
mean,
issue.
lingering quad issues are different than, a lot of other injuries, as we all know.
Yeah. It just never fails to sneak it in. But yeah, I mean, therefore, I mean, if we're in agreement that he's going to be good on a points per game basis and it's going to be good for the games that you have him, it's worth keeping in mind.
Yeah.
It's difficult, I would say, therefore, it's probably difficult, at least right now, to kind of slot him where he would be. But I would be like, wherever he does end up and wherever we end up ranking him, he's definitely a higher risk guy. The reward will be higher.
Well, well,
But
like I said,
he's the perfect example of a guy to pair up with like Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you're going him as a wide receiver two on the turn, somebody consistent, somebody who's constant points, because T. Higgins is a much more roller coastery ride that way.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, the good thing about it is that, there are some players that you can draft back to back with them. There's a lot of depth in the wide receiver room. So I would not hesitate taking him at his current ADP right now because of his opportunity. But again, you need to plan accordingly. When it comes down to drafting a T. Higgins, because if you don't, and your next opportunity to take a wide receiver falls down to uh like a Chris Olave, who is also an injury prone guy, or Jalen Waddle at that point, which you don't know what Jalen Waddle you're going to get. That can really hurt you. So Obviously we'll talk more about draft strategy as we get closer, but again, T. Higgins, he's a must. I really feel on everybody's board moving into this year. Moving forward, and obviously you're going to have to pair him with an opportunity that a player that's going to be a little bit more safer.
Yep. Um, let's move on to moving coming in at number 15 is Garrett Wilson. This one's really interesting.
Yeah,
I guess we've
don't
talked
like
about it
it.
before. Let's just catch anybody up who doesn't know. So the Jets brought in Justin Fields to be the quarterback. Garrett Wilson has a connection with Justin Fields from college.
Yeah,
So there's that. Um, Beyond that, though, like with the departure of Devontae Adams, I think this is both good and bad, the situation for him. So I guess high end wide receiver two is, I guess, right about right. My problem with the situation is that I could see the situation for New York going south so quickly. But maybe if they get some momentum behind them and they win a game, they lose a game, but they win a game, they lose a game. Maybe they keep it going, motivation stays up. But if it goes south, why would Garrett Wilson A want to stay there and B want to keep the motivation up? I mean, we've been criticizing Justin Fields for how many years for being an unbelievable running quarterback, but just not being accurate or
yeah.
holding on the ball a little too long.
Well, that's
I,
the problem. I mean, he's been a great running quarterback, but he hasn't been a great passing quarterback in the NFL. College, he was a really good dual threat, but it just hasn't translated to the, NFL. Maybe with the relationship he has with Garrett Wilson, it's a positive, but I feel like Garrett Wilson at this point in the draft, at this high up, I don't know if I can risk my, number two wide receiver coming off the board potentially, if he's my number three and I'm just flowing with wide receivers, then yeah, I mean, yeah, I could take the risk and gamble it there, but then you're really shooting yourself short with running backs. So
and definitely
again,
not the opportunity cost. I mean, some of the guys that you and I both like.
oh yeah, I mean,
I mean,
honestly,
like,
I'll tell you something right now. I would take Chris Godwin over Garrett Wilson all day. We're going into next year.
I mean, well then
That's that's that's
we're not even
that that's
we're not even
digging.
talking about him today.
I know, and that's digging deep. That's
Yeah,
digging deep right there. So, I mean, that's where I'm saying I'm more confident in a Chris Godwin pass first offense than I am with a Garrett Wilson, who knows, roll the dice offense right now.
we're doing a lot of agreeing right now. Yeah, I'm lower on JSN and Garrett Wilson than ADP is right now. We'll see how that looks going forward. Well, let's talk about the next guy because you and I are both. There's not a question. You and I are both higher on him than Garrett Wilson, for example, and JSN. So coming in at number 16 is Terry McLaurin.
Sir,
Um, what an unbelievable season for Washington for Terry McLaurin last year. Now it's just worth noting. It's worth noting that sophomore slumps happen. That could happen to Jaden Daniels. I mean, it happened to other quarterbacks we could name. I think with Cliff Kingsbury, the way that offense looked, and just the way that Jaden Daniels looked, I'm not going to predict that. I'm not going to predict that at all. I think Washington's going to be great. I think McLaurin's going to
no,
repeat again. Like it's,
it,
I think it's going to be great.
it's the perfect scenario. It's honestly the perfect scenario for, for the situation they have right there. I mean, I think honestly, it's not like it's not like they run the ball, they do a lot of quarterback runs that are irrelevant to the actual game and that are he's not as protected. The team flows naturally, and he's going to continue to throw the ball extremely well, and he has a really great connection with Terry McLaurin already. Debo Samuel coming in is going to add a lot of flash as well too. I think it's going to revive his career to an extent. I don't think you're going to have finishing number two overall Debo ever again, but it's gonna really help the team's dynamic, really get the ball down the field, and I think it's gonna open up a lot more for Terry McLaurin, to be honest.
I hope you're right. I know we were like I know we're kind of halfway not really sure how the Depot situation might affect them, but if you're right,
More
I
the
mean,
more you the more you put into it, the more you think about it. I mean, it really can't hurt it, to be honest.
I
I mean, there unless it's demeanor tone, in the huddle, that's a different story. But Debo really is when they're in a winning culture, he's really team. He's all team.
Sure.
So I think the Commanders' offense and defense, they're in a winning culture now, and they want to win and they want to take over the NFC East. And I really, it's really good to see them back, in a positive mindset. And they're light years away from where they were, even 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot to mention, I think it was, we discussed it earlier in the off season. So, uh, what's his name? Dimey Brown
Yeah.
has left. So obviously they brought in Debo, but Dimey Brown has left, who was definitely a more explosive guy. I mean, Scary Terry, as you like to call him, he's going to be the guy. And he's sitting here basically in the middle of the second round, or sorry, he's sitting here in the middle of wide receiver two's territory, at least on the current ADP we have. We're looking at him as a value right now.
Yeah, I mean, he finished off the season wide receiver six. So,
Right. I
I
mean, it's
mean,
hard to, I wouldn't predict that as a finish, really,
no, no,
but
no,
higher
no,
than where he
no,
is.
no, no. He's not going to finish, I don't think, in the top five, but he will finish in the top 12. And this is a great spot for you to draft him.
Okay.
Um, you know, as we went over rankings, our at like right now rankings, I have him finishing or he's my top
He's your number
12.
12.
He's
Right.
my number
At least
12.
right now, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
can potentially bump up, to be honest.
I'll tell you what, talking about the next guy, I feel really good about him too. Coming in at number 17 is DJ Moore. Here's another guy I would take over Garrett and JSN. So I really love what the Bears have done this offseason. They made a point to address the things that they needed. It'll be Caleb's second year. They brought in Ben Johnson. They're taking care of they're making moves on their O line. They still, I mean, DJ Moore is still at the top of his game. Um, I don't see how there can't be improvements here from what was last year. On top of the fact, I mean, DJ Moore had a great season even when Justin Fields was the quarterback.
Yeah.
DJ
I
Moore's
mean,
had some
yeah.
awful quarterback play. This is about to probably be his best quarterback throwing him the ball season, second year Caleb Williams on a better offense with Ben Johnson.
We'll
Like
see. We'll
I think
see.
it's all fires raging here.
Well,
Like
hopefully Caleb like buys into the system and he takes criticism the right way and
sure,
constructive criticism. I mean, it just really feels like, again, he had an okay rookie season. But honestly, I think it could have been a lot better if he, took some advice from his peers and didn't, feel like he was God's gift. Again, he is a great player. You don't go number one overall for no reason. But again, you need also the right talent when it comes down to coaching staff around you. And it just obviously was a roller coaster season coaching wise for them over there. So I think he needs a little bit more control, and I think that they're in a good position right now with the coaching element right now, and obviously having this, the players around him, and DJ Moore should be, finishing where he's being drafted. If not a little bit higher, he'll finish up as well too.
sure. All right, let's talk about coming in at number 18. This one should be an interesting
This
conversation.
guy has for the past 3 years is still going here, and he always finishes so much higher.
Mr. Mike Evans, Tampa Bay, brand new wide receiver for the Bucks. No,
A brand new wide receiver.
no, for the Tampa Bay
Mr.
Buccaneers.
1000.
Mr. 1000 again. So I might surprise you here. I'm gonna call my shot on Mike Evans. I think this is the year that it's over. I'm calling my shot here. And I don't like it because I love Mike Evans. I think he's such a great player. He's been so consistent and so good for so long. I think this is it. I think this is the last. I think he puts up 600. Maybe he even gets injured. 600 yards.
No, I
X
think
amount
I
of
think he's
touchdown.
still
I think this is it.
I think he still hits 1,000, to be honest. But I believe Chris Godwin has a better year than Mike Evans. Um, if both
I believe that. Yeah.
if both stay healthy for the full season, I believe that Chris Godwin will hoard more touchdowns playing in the slot. He's going to get more targets. Mike Evans is slowing down a little bit. There will be forced targets, which honestly I think that's what really makes him surpass the 1,000 yards. I don't think it's going to be like they're not going to be like forcing that week 7, 8. If they're playing for something because they obviously have more talent around him. He was the only talent at that point, and that honestly I really think that's another reason why McMillian looks so
Oh,
good.
don't you start here.
But again, I mean, he is the next. I won't say he can't be the next Mike Evans, but he's in target line to be the next Mike Evans. Once Mike Evans starts dissipating his.
I really see the dissipation happening this year. And it's funny you mentioned Chris Godwin, who we'll talk about next week. You might forget this, but before Chris Godwin got hurt last year, he was the wide receiver two.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
And it's
he was
because, like we said
peppered
earlier,
with
like I said
targets.
earlier, it's the pass first opportunity with that offense. I mean,
And
yes,
Baker's looking great. I mean,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, but yeah, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately for that offense, also they found another running back. They have Bucky Irving on top of
that's right.
that with White. So
There's so many
um,
mouths to feed.
there's a lot of mouths to feed, but it also opens up the door for them to, play better football and to have guys more open and, have one-on-one coverage. And because of the talent that's around that roster. So, and they were able to maintain that moving forward into next year. So I think it's a great situation for that offense. That offense should be highly targeted, but again, like I do agree with you. I th do think that there's going to be some regression. Mike Evans is not getting 10 plus touchdowns next year. I think, the hoarding element of Chris Godwin coming back healthy, 100% healthy, will take that from him. And
Then the
the
emergence of Jalen McMillions.
yeah,
Yes.
well, yeah, I mean, him being the wide receiver 3 or potentially 4, we'll see.
Well, he's the three. I know. Uh, by the way, if anyone doesn't know why we make this joke, Jalen McMillions was hands down my favorite fantasy football player last year, but also because partially because we were so right about it. Like we made the call on it, and we were like, he came right through, and it was every single game. Now again, he came through in the complete absence of Chris Godwin, to Tommy's point. So you know, part of my issue on Mike Evans is not only is he just another year older, not only do we feel really good about Chris Godwin, but yes, Jalen McMillions did emerge. He's likely to start to
I
cut
mean,
into that.
he,
Like,
I mean, I will say this though. I mean, it was week 14 through 18, 5 games where he had double digit points. I mean, yes, it was fantastic to end the season to look that way. But again,
sure.
you could dangle the carrot that way. He also finished number 16. Obviously, sorry, number 60, wide receiver 60 for the year. So, I mean, yes, the way he
Rookie wide
finished the
receiver, give
year,
him time to get there. This is a
well,
fair
he
point,
finished
though.
the year, but again, he was getting those targets without those players being there. I mean, he also, he put up 4.1 fantasy points, but 8 targets and 3 receptions, 15 yards against Baltimore, which last year Baltimore was not so good at defense,
All right. I mean,
passing wise.
you're cherry picking. However, your overall point is well taken. So,
So
so yeah, Mike Evans, though, but yeah, we generally feel the same way about him. Um, Coming after him, though, I don't know how we talk about this. So coming in at number 19 is Marvin Harrison. So it was kind of the amount of anger is not the right word. Let's just say overall frustration. Let's leave it there that we had with Arizona in general throughout the season last year. Was it every single week we were either praising Kyler or throwing tomatoes at him, or just some guy on Arizona that we hated, we loved, or whatever. It's directly tied together. The Kyler discussion and the Marvin Harrison discussion. Whose fault it was? Maybe it was Gannon. Harrison did not look like he was running routes the way he should have. That having been said, it's not like Kyler delivered the best stuff to him. The
no,
offense was so hit and miss. Um, Here's what I'll say: Harrison comes from a good pedigree. His father cares about football too. He cares about football. Presumably, he's going to be taking some kind of a step up. Um, so it really can't get much worse than it did last year. Part of the problem was last year, though, he was just drafted so high. Um,
yeah, he
so
was he was a number he was a first round, late first round, early second round draft pick. Um,
right.
I will say this though, the targets are the big thing as we talk about. Targets are very, very important.
Mhm.
There was only 2 weeks where he had under 5 targets. The rest of the season, he had five or more targets every single game. Now, what he did with the targets were not great.
Right.
Um,
This is
you
a
know,
good point, though. Targets matter. He's going to get
targets
targeted.
matter. He's getting the targets now. Going into a sophomore year, maybe those targets because he was perceived as the number one wide receiver. He's going against those number one guys, as the number one cornerbacks, whoever that he's going against. Maybe his off-season workouts are going to be a little bit more dynamic. Maybe you're not playing the same sport when it comes down to college football to NFL, professional football. It's a lot faster, so maybe he, works on those elements, which I assume he will because he's not going to tarnish his career. So I think going into this year, you're taking a player like Marvin Harrison at a value, because his upside can be tremendous.
Yeah. Well, well, let me get you. I mean, I know to some degree we're prognosticating here, but I mean, do they actually do they really? Do they take a step up?
I think they do.
Should we
I think they do because I think they have to.
so
Um,
you're gonna believe a little bit in Kyler and Harrison.
yeah, there has to be a connection. They have, and if Kyler wants to go down as Mr. Call of Duty, then he can continue doing what he's doing. If he wants to revive his career, he's got the best talent, probably wide receiver talent that he's ever had in a Marvin Harrison.
I know every time we talk about Arizona in the back of my mind, I'm like, when is Call of Duty getting brought up? No, but you're right. I mean, we'll wait to see kind of how after the draft how things look. But to your point, they have to take they have to take a step up. They
Yeah.
absolutely have
I
to.
mean, quarterbacks these days are either playing Call of Duty or buying Batmobiles. So, I mean, come on. You got this flashy wide receiver. He's throwing the ball with accurate throws that are catchable, and he can make plays with them because he's a tremendous talent. He just, again, going back to Marvin Harrison, maybe he just, didn't take the full-fledged step that he needed to last year, and maybe as a team they're a little bit more dynamic, and he's able to really flash his greatness.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
I honestly, like I said, I think that you're getting a really good value drafting him, where he's going to be projected.
I don't want to spend too much time. I just wanted to get your opinion on this. So I forget which media outlet said this, but um, they said that it was like Jonathan Gannon has the highest probability of being fired in the middle of the season next year, him along with maybe Mike McDaniel or something.
Hmm.
Um, I don't I wonder what effect or what effect that might have on how we think about things if Gannon is likely to be fired. I mean, Arizona did put up a fight last year, but I mean, it's not like Gannon is the most rah-rah or the most, cool head coach or anything like that.
No, he's better than Duval.
He's definitely better than that. It's just we don't have to pontificate about it too much. It's just worth keeping in mind that Arizona's situation could turn south next year. They have a difficult schedule too. So we'll keep that in mind. Um, let's talk about another NFC West wide receiver here. Coming in at number 20 is Devontae Adams, newly traded wide receiver to the LA Rams. We talked a little bit last week about Puka. Um, Tommy and you and I both have differing opinions on Puka. It's one of the guys that we actually differ the most on, considering where he is. And part of my thinking of such is that I think that the impact of Devonte Adams is a net positive for Puka. You think it's a net negative. So therefore, you should be high on Devonte Adams, right?
I am. I think that he's definitely a wide receiver. I think he's a high end wide receiver too. He's being drafted where he should be. Um, he's going to put up wide receiver one numbers. But again, the thing is I'd rather take Adams at his value than I would Puka at his value, because I don't believe that Puka is worth the number four wide receiver off the board. I will not be taking him. If he falls down as, out of the first round or close to the end of the second round, there's a possibility that I will, but it's not going to happen. You're going to have your Puka guys just like you had your Cup guys back in the day, taking Cup way too early sometimes, and, not producing to what he should have done because of injury or whatever it was. So, I believe Adams is a fantastic talent. I think drafting him where he will be, projected to draft is a great place to draft him because he's going to finish. He's technically going to be drafted as your wide receiver too, and
Right.
um, but again, kind of like the Higgins situation. Adams is not going to have his wide receiver 1 weeks every single week. So there's going to be times where he doesn't have his wide receiver 2 weeks sometimes. He is a model to play pretty much every single game when happy with the team. Um, so he's somebody that you can really plug in every single week as a wide receiver 2. Like I said, there's an opportunity to even draft him as your wide receiver 3, and then he's a fantastic flex play. So, um,
Well, I mean then that's quite a you're loading up on wide receivers there. Or if that's the case, if he's your
I
wide
mean, if you
receiver
put it in
three.
perspective, I mean, he's technically number 41. So if you're going in, if you're drafting in the sixth spot, right, six, seven spot, and you're getting that's your fourth round pick potentially right there. So if you
Maybe.
go wide receiver, running back in the beginning, first two, and then you go wide receiver, half point PPR, that's your flex.
Maybe. And I mean, yeah, to some degree, like we shouldn't take best ball overall total ADP
No, but then you also, I
as
mean,
gospel, but
no, no, but I mean, again, there are leagues that
sure.
draft that really love quarterbacks and they like taking their quarterbacks early, which obviously puts more ADP, pushes back the ADP for some of these players that should be going earlier.
I think our difference on
There are
Adams,
going to be people that are afraid to take Davante Adams because this is
eh,
his fourth team in 3.5 years.
right, and he's older now.
He's
I
older,
think
but again, I think it's a great place for him.
I think Devontae, well, he's going in basically in the middle of the second round. You said higher end wide receiver two, so he'll go, or sorry, I should not say, he's going in the mid range of wide receiver twos. So you see him as a higher end wide receiver two. I see him as a lower end wide receiver two. It's not a knock on him. This is kind of like, it's just another year. Like at some point, the train's got to end. I still think he's very good. But again, my feelings about Puka notwithstanding,
So there's
like
two players that you believe the train is going to end that have been producers for fantasy and for the NFL for their entire career.
I think the train for Mike Evans is going to stop. I think the train for Devontae Adams is going to slow, a little bit different. But I think that but a lot of it is because of my feelings about Puka. I just think it's Puka's team. Um, but we'll see how we feel about it. Also, there's a lot of mouths to feed now in LA. Like they got some nice backup receivers. I mean, Kyron gets the ball every play. So I mean, we'll see how that goes.
I mean, again, though, that's not bad for a team that is pulling
No,
in
no,
the Adams.
no. No, it's not. I'm sure we'll have disagreements about this one most of the offseason. So coming in just after Devontae Adams, number 21 is Xavier Worthy. So I'm on
He's
record
not
saying,
worthy to be here.
so I'm on, well, let's see. So I'm on record as saying at the end of the Super Bowl, like after the Super Bowl was over, I remember saying two main things to you and to other people. I remember saying, number one, the Chiefs' offensive line is horrendous. That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And number two, why doesn't Patrick Mahomes just throw it deep to Worthy every play? He looks like a receiver who's coming into
Because
his
you can
own.
put it in, because you can literally just say the same thing about the tush push. Why don't you do the tush push every single play?
Well, okay. So I mean, now don't get me into the minutia of what is allowed and what shouldn't be allowed and consistency or whatever. So let's leave sleeping dogs as they lie. But the Xavier Worthy thing, I bring it up to mention like there was a time in history in which, Tyreek Hill was not that good of a route runner. And, he would get like those 90-yard touchdowns, but it wouldn't be that valuable of a season. And then all of a sudden, and this was with Alex Smith as the quarterback, Andy Reid finally taught him how to run routes, and then they had a great connection, and he had a great year. And then he was wide receiver one for the rest of his tenure in KC with Patrick Mahomes, etc. So I don't. To me, I see this very similar. He looked like a guy who was finally learning how to get open, run routes, and not just be the fastest man on the planet. So I don't know if that kind of consistency breakout happens for next year. It should be noted that Rashee Rice, who We should probably just lump him
He's
in.
two players right behind him.
Let's just lump him in. So Rashee Rice at 23 is returning, who was basically the target monster for the first half of the year that he wasn't injured 2 years ago. Um, One of the major reasons that I think Travis Kelce is going to be I don't want to say non-factor, but it's going to be a bad year for him because Rashee Rice. But what's to stop Worthy from taking over the old Tyreek role here?
Because he's not Tyreek.
I mean, that's a fair point. But Tyreek wasn't Tyreek for 2 years or so either.
I mean, honestly, I mean, if it, let's just put it this way: if Zay Flowers was swapped with Xavier Worthy, Zay Flowers would actually have a better opportunity to be like a Tyreek Hill
I
than.
disagree completely. Come on, MVS was in KC. He didn't look as good as Worthy did. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, Worthy is like 140 pounds soaking wet.
how heavy is Tyreek?
Tyreek's
180,
like
70 pounds.
170, but like he looks like he can actually run through somebody at times.
All
Like he's
right, so
crazy.
all right, so how low do you see Worthy then? You don't even think he belongs here in the wide
If
receiver
you're
two territory?
I'm not sleeping well at night if I'm drafting Xavier Worthy in my as my RB my wide receiver too.
Do you think Rice should be the highest drafted Chiefs receiver?
Yeah, 100%. And
Is
it's because of what he did in the beginning of the season. He was
targets,
hyper targeted. He was scoring touchdowns. He got injured, and then it was over. And then they really didn't have an identity. That was the thing.
right?
They were winning games, but they didn't have an identity.
Right.
There was no sure guy. Like it was either you can't even say Kelsey had a great year too because he had a better year as the year went on. He just got better, but like Worthy was like it was like hit or miss. It was like, all right, you're either gonna get 27 points or you're gonna get 3 points from Worthy. So
This this,
inconsistent.
this is fair. I think despite the comparisons to Tyreek Hill, I think I kind of net to where you are, which is like this is going to be a little bit too inconsistent for me. I think the breakout does happen, but I don't. It's definitely not going to happen in the very beginning of the year. They need to kind of get their footing under them. The Chiefs see what their new offense is going to look like.
Again, he finished last season as wide receiver 30, and he pretty much played the entire year. So I mean, again, it's just the definition of being inconsistent. You,
Right.
you're this is where I have a problem with like people that will draft. He will go as a wide receiver too. He will 100% because people saw the flashes. The issue I have with that is your wide receiver two needs to be wide receiver one and wide receiver two, I believe, just from my perspective, need to be consistent every single week. You're not, if you're getting a guy that's basically putting up 7+ points every single week as your wide receiver two, that's really what you need. You need that consistency. You can't take a donut in that week. You really can't. And
No, but to some degree, like you have to kind of try to shoot for the stars at some point.
well,
You can't
but
be
again,
complete. You can't be completely risk
no, no,
averse.
no. I understand shooting for the stars, but you also could shoot for the stars when you're taking your wide receiver 3, 4. There's talent out there to take shoot for the stars there, and potentially be finishing in the top 15 kind of
That's
player.
that's true. I I agree
I
with
value
saying that.
my early draft picks. I always value them because I want to make sure they're going to be as consistent as possible because you're creating a foundation for your roster. You don't want if you shoot so high all the time, that's where you're going to basically take 1, 2, 3 losses in a row, and then you're going to be scrambling to try to get that win. You don't want to start your season like that.
Well, you know why Xavier Worthy is being drafted here. It's not because of his fantasy finish last year.
No,
It's because the playoffs and the Super Bowl. That's
yeah,
why.
I get
And
it.
it looked like a connection was being
But
made.
how many times have you gone and watched playoffs and Super Bowl, right? For these players and they just don't do it for
And
the
it
rest of
does.
the season and
You're
they're
right.
just playoff and Super Bowl people. Like,
Right, but
Mecole
there
Hardman.
are guys that does happen for. You're
There
right, but
are, but it's very, 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 very few.
you're right. I would like the thing then to that point, I net to where you're netting on Xavier Worthy, but not because I'm just discounting what he did in the playoffs, but I net to where you do because it just seems like it's going to be a little inconsistent to start the year. Rashee Rice's return, all the things we mentioned. Rashee Rice, though, I agree with you. I think he's probably well placed because, like we say, targets are king. He's going to get targeted, and he's a talented player. And another, and we'll get to it when we talk about tight ends, but Travis Kelce's completely dissipated. I mean, and the short area targets are going to go to Rice.
Yeah, talking about tight ends is going to be like like scratching your nails on a chalkboard. It's gonna,
There's
it's
going to be a
not
lot
gonna
of
be
members
fun.
of the Geriatric Society on that list too. Once we get it. All right, so coming in at number 22, just between Worthy and Rice, is Devontae Smith. Um, man, it's like sometimes talking about Devontae Smith and also the Eagles, it's like not fun. To your point about like just the way the Eagles are, because they are just so good, they are so efficient. Um, we should bring up, I don't want to endlessly poo-poo on the AJ Brown. Like I called him the whiniest player in the NFL, which I 100% believe. But it should be noted that yeah, the Eagles did not pass very much. I mean, when you got Saquon Barkley running for 8,000 yards, like it is what it is. I am on record saying that I think that the pendulum is going to swing back just a little bit. I think they're going to pass a little bit more. I think they have to. I think they have to because they can't just be one dimensional. Therefore, guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are going to be beneficiaries. That having been said, Devontae Smith, I mean, we went and we looked at his fantasy finishes since he came into the league. He's basically like why like he had one year where he did not finish in the top 24. Other than that, he's basically, low end wide receiver two, basically for most of his career. And that's where I see him. I mean, you talk about consistency it, in my estimation last year, having been a Devontae Smith owner, it's not like I was that crazy about having him. I really worked hard to try to put other guys in my starting lineup because I felt like the upside was capped with Devontae Smith. I don't know if you felt the same way.
So Devontae Smith, I mean, if you look at it 2021 through 2024, basically 2021, he had 104 targets. Uh, I'm not going to go over the rest of the numbers.
Sure, sure.
Basically 104 targets. He finished number 29. Targets went to 136 in 2022. He finished number 10 wide receiver. And then the next year, they basically got AJ Brown. He finished with 112 targets, finished number 20. And last year, 89 targets for 30. So his target share is going down just because of the system that they have. I think with Saquon Barkley, I do not believe that they're going to change any other type of
Right.
dynamic. They're not
We
changing
we have, we have a
anything.
slight
Okay?
disagreement on
No,
this.
so
Yes.
so I got to be really honest with you. The only way that
So then you don't even think he belongs here then by that
I don't
logic.
think he belongs here. I mean, I think he belongs as the number 24.
Okay, so close, but not
Number
okay.
24, no, he belongs close to this, but he's not a player I'm again super excited to have as my wide receiver too.
Yeah,
Um,
and his
he
upside is so capped.
he's more of like I said, he's more of there's more excitement as a flex play because of the fact that he's not consistent, but when he does hit, he hits.
Right.
So that's the kind of player I'm looking as a flex.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that. I would be, man, I would really not like to have him as my wide receiver too. I wouldn't. I'd like to have a bit more oomph
Yeah.
behind it.
That's why I said you need more consistency as your wide receiver one and two,
Yeah,
and then he's your boom play.
sure. All right, so let's talk about last guy we're talking about today. Tommy's favorite player in the whole wide world, coming in at number 24, star wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, DK Metcalf. Um, now, I think that a lot of this conversation is irrelevant based on what quarterback is going to be there. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's not Aaron Rodgers. I know you think it's absolutely Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's
I
99.9%.
I think that this is just my opinion because right now this is people are drafting now for best ball. I bet you that who- the thought of him as the wide receiver 24 is baked into that we don't know currently who the quarterback is. I'm willing to bet that ADP is going to go up if it's Aaron Rodgers, and it will go down if it ends up being, you know, Yo-Yo X or like whoever,
I mean, it could also be
random.
Kirk Cousins. Who knows?
I think it would go. I think it'd go down if it was Kirk.
I don't know. I mean, I will say this: they wouldn't have signed him for a 5-year, $150 million contract extension with the Steelers without touching the field as a Steeler. if they weren't going to be investing as a quarterback in him. They're not, DK is going into his what? DK is going into his one, two, three, four, five, six. He's going to his seventh year, so he's not getting younger. This is his prime now. His targets have dissipated the past 2 years, 2023, 2024. Not aggressively, but they are going down. His receptions drastically went down. He only caught 66 balls the past 2 years, with over 100 targets per year. Um, the biggest thing is, I think going into next year, it depends on, again, his quarterback situation. He still is a dynamic player, but they would not have signed him. I'm going to be real with. They would not have traded for him and made this whole thing. And obviously they have, what's his name on the other side of the ball.
Pickens.
Yeah, George Pickens, who is a great talent as well too. There's either going to be fist fights on the field with both of them just beating up on defensive players, or they're going to be, having one-on-one coverage down the field. And as we all know, DK can fly. As big as he is as fast as, I won't say Tyreek Hill, but close to. So,
If it's Aaron Rodgers, w- um how high where would you slot him then?
he'll
I
be in
know
the
he'd
top
go
15.
higher.
He'll be
Top
he'll
50,
be in the top 15.
top 15. Interesting. So like a lot of names here that we just talked about, you would take him over if it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Okay. I I don't know, man. 15 is pretty high, but he definitely jumps up about 6 or 7 spots here. So maybe it's right around there. It'll be close. So, but I agree with you 100%. Um, I also think and also we've kind of halfway argued about this past
Let's put
season.
it this way. Let's put it this way. If DK if Aaron Rodgers signs there right now, he's slotted at 24.
Right.
He goes above Xavier Worthy. He's
For
above
sure.
Devontae Smith. He's above Rashid Rice because you just don't know if he's 100% coming into week one, right? And also that suspension that potentially was going to happen could correlate into this year because it didn't happen last year. So you don't know what that situation is with Rashid Rice. Um, I take
From
him
eight.
over. I take him over Devontae Adams because he is technically coming in as the wide receiver one or higher value player than Devontae Adams. And I kind of slot him there. So, I mean, again, there are some other players, like I said, I don't like some of those other players that were in the top 12, that I would slot lower. So, like I said, 15 to 17 is pretty much my target range that I would probably slot him as.
Yep. It's we could probably track the ADP after if Aaron Rodgers signs there, we'll track the ADP. I bet you he falls right about there too. It's
Yeah.
probably good. It's probably a good call. Um, yeah, so that covers 13 to 24. We're actually going to talk about 25 to 36, and mostly for the point of guys who we think might have a chance to jump into the,
Yeah.
take some big steps and make some moves and maybe could be future sleepers going into next year. So in our early ADP look. So there we go. Any closing thoughts?
No, again, appreciate everybody tuning in, and yeah, just if you guys could like, subscribe, share, really helps our content. Obviously, we're going to keep bringing different content to you every single week as we get closer to the year. We'll be doing some more shows and be drawing some more information to you guys, so we can obviously help you guys generate more wins next year and win some championships. So, chips, plural. So yeah, ready to rock and continue to go. And guys, out there, we have our shorts commenters. We are ready to reply back to you and maybe tag you to some of these.
Yeah, and I'll just make one quick note is that I have nothing but love for anybody who's watching our stuff and has thoughts to share. And even if you won't want to be the most respectful about the stuff, that's the only way that I'll be with you guys. So just keep it in mind. I'm happy to have fun little arguments. But we do really appreciate it, and I echo all Tommy's sentiments. So cool. All right.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.